It's very interesting there to see what Martin is doing as part of the Calf to Beef programme down in Roscommon. I'm now joined on the programme by Aidan Maguire. Aidan is also one of our Calf to Beef programme farmers, and Aidan's not far from here in Teagasc, Grange. He's over in Navan. You're very welcome to Live at Grange, Aidan.
Thanks, Piers.
Well, first of all, I'm going to move to Sean. Sean Cummins is our programme advisor on the programme. Sean, you're very welcome to Live at Grange. Sean, we saw there with Martin Connolly that there was a number of things that he's done in the last 12 months. One of the big things he talked about was the whole area of reducing the level of antibiotics that he's using on his farm. He seems to have done a lot to improve that, and he seems to have brought in a number of different measures. Is that something that you're seeing on other Green Acres farms? Is there something that you're working on them? We know antibiotic resistance is something that we're all worried about in the industry. It's something that we're all going to have to focus on a huge amount more over the next 10, 20, 30 years for the rest of our careers. Is that something that ye as programme advisors are working on with the programme farmers, including the likes of Martin and Aidan here this evening?
I suppose, Piers, probably what we really need to aim at is keeping the animal healthy. And if we're able to keep an animal healthy, we're going to automatically reduce our antibiotic usage. So we can often complicate the message in terms of antimicrobial resistance and what antibiotics are being used. But once we get that animal healthy, it's really key to the programme. I suppose we're very, very lucky in terms of the animal health programmes we're working up for farmers, and that we've involvement from one of our stakeholders, MSD, and that's a huge help in terms of implementing some of the measures at farm level. So I suppose what we're trying to do with the farmers, and what thankfully they are doing for us, is they're actually focused on where they're buying the calf. So on the first day they're buying a healthy calf. We've seen farmers move more to buying calves directly off dairy farms. Previously we'd seen farms that were buying calves through marts or through dealers, and some of the calves in terms of the health status coming in would have been suspect, and that did cause problems. But once you have a healthy calf, the next thing you really have to look at is where you're going to put that calf on your farm. So we brought the farmers together, I think it was late October, November last year, and just looked at the elements of calf housing. So we looked at ventilation, preventing drafts, even something as simple as where you're mixing the milk replacer on your farm, just to give that environment, that calf the perfect environment to perform. So once you have a healthy calf going into a perfect environment, the next thing then is prevention. So all the farmers have been recommended a vaccination program. So we're basically looking at trying to treat our pneumonia, or trying to prevent outbreaks of pneumonias and IBR. Possibly, or the main ones we're trying to hit there is our PR3 or RSV and our IBR. We're also implementing procedures there for Clostridial diseases at farm level. Probably a big thing as well at farms that we're seeing is that the nutrition that's going into calves this year have improved significantly, I would say. You probably often heard that a full calf is a happy calf, but if a calf gets hungry or it's not been fed the quality milk replacer that it needs, or it's been underfed, the calf is stressed, and the stressed calf is very, very close to being a sick calf, Piers.
Okay, so just go back there on the vaccination. You were saying, at what stage are you going in with those vaccination programs? Is it very early in the life, or is it later, or when is it?
Generally, and it's the advice we've been getting from the farmers have been getting from their own local vets and through input as well, is that we're looking at letting the calf rest the day before we go in with the first shot of vaccine, just to make sure that we actually get the bang for the buck.
So they'd only just have been bought, and you'd be talking about going in there with a vaccine?
No, the next day.
A day or two within it being purchased.
Give the calf a chance to settle, get accustomed to its new environment. Then that's for the first shot IBR and our pneumonia. We'd be following that up then roughly 4 weeks later with a booster shot for pneumonia as well. But it all depends on what the veterinary advice is in that regard. We'd be looking at going in with our IBR then, the calf roughly at 12 weeks of age. And then again for pneumonia when the calf is 7 to 8 months of age, or possibly the next stress period, which in calf to beef systems tends to be just when the calf is being housed, or prior to the calf being housed.
Okay. And what impact are you seeing across the farms? I mean, you're involved in a number of the farms.
We seen last year on the farms, we seen across the 12 farms we're working with, the mortality rates on the farms coming in at around 5%. That's higher than what we needed it to be. And I suppose there was a number of issues with calves coming in, that issues with pneumonia did develop and issues with scours did develop. Thankfully this year we've seen it reduce significantly, and that's basically through the measures that have been outlined.
Okay, Nicky, just on that, I mean, you buy a lot of calves here as well. What level of mortality rate are you seeing coming on the?
Yeah, so we're mixing maybe 35 to 40 different sources, and over the last 2 years we achieved mortality rates of 1.4 and just under 1% this year respectively.
And what's your vaccine? Is it
So
similar?
our
or is it-
vaccination protocol is very, very similar to that Sean outlined. Our calves are arriving at 3 weeks of age. We're settling them in for 24 hours before we go in with our vaccinations intranasally for RSV, PI3 and IBR, and then follow-up boosters a month after. And like Sean said, before any of those stress points, 6 months on, such as housing or castration, we'd like to go in and give our booster shots in advance of that to get the animal over that stress period.
Okay, great. Another thing that Martin was talking about in the video there, Sean, was improving his silage quality. We all know that silage quality, making good quality silage, is really important for calf to beef farms because they don't have a dry period, they don't have a period that they can put on no weight gain. What are you seeing on the program again, similar to Martin? What are the issues that's holding back quality silage being made, or what are the things that are being implemented probably more positively on the farms that are improving the quality of silage that's being made on those farms?
I suppose, Pierce, last year when it came to just monitoring the weights of the cattle, we were seeing that cattle just weren't coming out of the shed at the weight they needed to be on many of the farms in the programme. And I suppose that came down to really the silage quality that was going in. So we discussed it with farmers earlier in the year that we need to try and bring up the quality of the silage that we're seeing at farm level. So we're aiming for a silage quality between 74 and 76 DMD. I suppose the question why we're aiming so high, but like last year our average silage quality was 69.5 for the farms in the programme for the first cuts. If we're able to get the silage quality up to where we want it to be this year, we're going to see the meal feeding levels reduce on farm by about 750 grams a day. 750 grams a day mightn't seem like a lot, Pierce, but if you put that over a 120-day winter, it's €21 a head for an animal. Or in the region, so that, like if you're stocked to 2 livestock units, that's €40 straight off your net margin straight away. What we tried to do with the farmers is we said, look, we'll try and get the silage closed. We'll get the silage closed by the latest to St. Patrick's Day, the 17th of March. From that then we either had to work out how we were going to get it grazed off before or grazed in the back end of the year to make sure that the new crop that was going was actually going to be of quality. So in some cases farmers grazed lighter stock late into the back end of the year, and in others the graze that had the silage ground grazed before it was actually let out. We looked at then what fertiliser was needed. So on some of the farms in the programme, there is issues with soil fertility levels. So we're seeing that our P&K levels are probably about 40 and 50% of where they need to be. Like only 40 and 50% of the soils are at index 3 and 4. So we then looked at going in and putting in the right type of fertiliser. Basically we were looking at going in with 100 units of nitrogen and then topping up our P's and K's were required with either a slurry or compound fertilisers. We gave the farmers the deadline of having their first cuts done by the 20th of May, and thankfully it was nearly achieved in all cases, bar the odd paddock that was grazed later or any small fields in some cases. What we have seen as well is that the second cuts on the farms, in Martin's video there he was actually walking through a field of silage, that has actually been cut close on 2 weeks this year, and many of the farmers in the programme have their second cuts completed already. So what we're trying to do is, instead of getting the big bulk of first cut, we're trying to go in and get 2 quality cuts that we can reduce our meal feeding levels. Just back to Martin there as well, like Martin's first cut was cut towards the end of June last year, so he nearly has the 2 cuts done at this stage.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks Sean, we'll come back to you in a minute. Aidan, you're very welcome, as I said, to live at Grange. Maybe give a bit of a background to where you're from, what your farming system is, and what your farming system is, I suppose, Aidan, where you're from.
Well, I'm farming at Navan, County Meath. I'm farming about 46 hectares of all grassland. I rear calves, that's what I do, 120 heifer and bull calves, buy them in 3 weeks of age sort of thing, and rear them on. Aim to have them killed around the heifers around the 20-month age and the bullocks 24 months out of the shed.
Okay, and you're in the Green Acres programme, Aidan. What changes have you made in the last? We hear from Martin there saying he's done quite a number of changes. Has your system changed? Have you made other changes to the farm since you joined the programme?
Well, the biggest change I made was probably dividing the place up into better paddocks, and then the housing facilities, the sheds for rearing the calves have been upgraded definitely. The feeding spaces allocated for fattening cattle, I can now feed meal.
Okay.
In the pens and that. So.
And were you not finishing cattle up?
I wasn't up until that. I really wasn't. I was selling stores,
Okay.
You know, calf to store selling them at 450 kilos. But there was, through the programme and that, I realised that there is more to be taken from an animal
Okay.
by finishing it.
And would you say the paddocks made the biggest improvement, or the sheds made the biggest improvement, or where would you, in your opinion, think, you know, has made the biggest improvement in terms of performance, the impact on performance on cattle, that you're now able to finish them at younger ages?
I think the biggest single improvement was probably the grassland management. You know, getting them out early, keeping them a long time at grass has, you know, has improved the weight going into the shed. You know, they've done so
Great.
well.
And what number of calves are you buying every year, Aidan?
I buy in about 120 split between autumn and spring born.
Okay, and you rear all them yourself?
Everything, yes, yeah.
Okay. And where are they coming from, Aidan?
They're coming from 3 local farmers, more or less 3 local farmers, which they know what I want, and I can, you know, I get a phone call to say they're ready, and I go and collect.
And breeds?
Angus, Frisian and Hereford.
And would you have any personal choice, one over the other?
A bit like Nicky there, I do prefer me Frisian. The Frisian seems to go ahead better, has better growing possibilities, and that, you know, and you end up with more carcass sold at the end of the day, you know, compared to an Angus. An Angus is a grand little creature, but it just doesn't have the weight, you know, for its age, shall we say. Yeah.
Okay, and you're buying, as you say, from 3 farms.
Yeah.
You know, do you buy calves from the mart at all?
I have bought calves from the mart and ended up in a bit of bother with them. They seem to have come with every condition that was possible for them to have, and it was a struggle to get them through. I got them all through, thank God, and they turned into nice weanlings now, but it was an awful lot of extra work.
Okay, just on that, Sean, is that unusual in the programme, only buying from 3? We hear Richard there is only buying from 1. He's lucky, it's his brothers. But, you know, is that something we're seeing in the programme, or is there bigger numbers?
We're after seeing sort of a change, Pierce, between the spring of 19 and spring of 20, where some farmers are buying calves from a large number of sources. They're actually after getting stung in a way with disease outbreaks. So they're going back to actually buying off dairy farms where they know the type of calf they're buying. They know what's happening on the farm. So that's helping in a way. I suppose there is still an element of calves being bought from marts and dealers, but they tend to be more the autumn calf, where just the numbers available on the market are very, very tight at that time of the year.
Okay, so not tightening up the numbers they're coming from. What kind of range would it be?
Ranges from 1 to about 6. In terms of the 6 at the minute, it's basically 2 splits, so 2 rearing, so it's three farms for each group of calves, if that makes sense.
Okay, very good. Okay, what when you're looking to buy a calf, Aidan, you know, what is it you're looking for in a calf?
Well, firstly, he must be 3 weeks old. That's for me, that's the most important thing, and he has to be, say, shiny coat, bright eyes, dry nose, dry navel, you know, and good and lively. All the signs that he's got plenty of colostrum.
Okay. So. Okay. And is there a situation where we heard earlier on about the dairy beef index? Is there a situation where maybe if you could buy continental calves, that you would buy continental calves, or are you more sold on buying the Angus and the Herefords and the Frisians?
I would be more sold on the Angus and the Hereford and the Frisian. Say the Hereford and Frisian more so than the Angus, but you know, those are the type of cattle or calves that are being offered to me. The chances of getting a Charolais from my dairymen is very slim.
Okay, Sean, just coming back to you on the dairy calf to beef program, the Green Acres program. You know, what are some of the other lessons that we're seeing? You know, like what's impacting on profitability? What are the big things that are impacting on profitability on those farms?
Basically, Pierce, it goes back to some of the points we've been touching on, but generally what we're seeing is actually the loss in performance in some cases on farms. Thankfully, the farmers in the programme, they're after becoming very, very efficient grassland managers, and now they're in a position where they're taking out surplus bales and they're keeping the grass right in front of the cattle the whole way through the season. So, like, we're in a position where we could potentially be losing 0.2, 0.3 of a kilo a day in terms of live weight gain for a year plus stock in a way, because they're going in grazing covers of 2,500, 3,000, just because the farmer was fearful they were losing. The they were going to run out of grass. But thankfully this has changed because farmers are starting to believe in the grass measure and what it can actually do. Another thing that we've seen the farmers as well, or since the programme, I think has been a help to the farmers, is to have a clear direction of where they're going. They know that if they buy a calf in the morning, that 24 months down the line, or 20 months down the line, or 28 months down the line, that animal is going to hit such and such a carcass at whatever the beef price may be. But if we have budgeted in beef prices, so they have an idea what they're going to be selling down the line.
Okay, just on carcass weight, coming back to you, Nicky, that's an interesting point, and we didn't get to talk about it. But what kind of carcass weights, again, going back to those, that I know it's only the first bunch of animals that have been slaughtered and that, but they did, as you say, perform really well up to 23 months before they were slaughtered. What kind of carcass weights were you getting across the different groups?
Yeah, so to begin with our Holstein Friesian genotype, we achieved a carcass weight of 305 kilos. And we finished 3.2 animals per hectare, so that generated a carcass output of 976 kilos carcass output per hectare. So that is very, very high level of carcass output. When we look at our high index Angus, they achieved a carcass weight of 300 kilos, grading O equals, and they achieved a carcass output of 960 kilos on a per hectare basis. And our lower index Angus, they were 7 kilos lighter than those. Still, they were categorised as an O equals, and they achieved 940 kilos carcass output per hectare, but it was probably of a slightly lower value than what our higher index animals were. And also, when we go back to the Friesians, you know, at the 3+, we drafted them all at 3+, we'd maximised their carcass weight potential at that, and they graded O- borderline P+. So the real area for improvement in the Friesians would be on their carcass conformation, and if we can do that, they'd offer a lot more themselves, and they'd also influence the carcass conformation of the beef cross progeny coming from that cow type. And then I think we'd really see a lot more to offer from it.
And some people, and that's at a kind of a 23 month of age, is it? But some people would argue, you know, would you not leave them there, and you know they were slaughtered out of the shade very early? Would you not leave them there for another 2-3 months, put up another 20-30 kilos or whatever that it might be over a period of time? What was your thinking on that?
Yeah, so I suppose our system, we're limited by land. That was our limiting factor in the equation. So we wanted to drive output per hectare, and we're probably looking forward and looking towards the environment as well. You know, if we can reduce age at slaughter, that will probably have the single biggest effect on reducing our agricultural emissions from an animal point of view. So really, we're making full use of grass and maximising our carrying capacity and driving the system from an output per hectare basis rather than output per individual animal or any other format. So really that's the best option for our system and the type of animal that we've had. We would have been holding those animals back to let them go on. And we achieved national average carcass performance, but at 6 months younger than what has been achieved nationally.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nicky.